Welcome back to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. This is the podcast that features me, Jana Stern, psychic activator, energy healer, and astrologer, as I delve into deep conversations with different folks in the holistic and conscious industries about the many beliefs and practices of spirituality, mental health, and what it means to be a human who's into that stuff in the 2020s and beyond. Welcome to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. I am very excited about today's conversation. I'm joined by one of my favorite humans. We met in this very kismet way, and I'm super stoked to have you here. My friend Shui, you are a peaceful masculine guide and a sound alchemist. Tell the people who you really are and what that means.
So basically what that means when I say a peaceful masculine guide, when you look at the narrative of masculine energy now, you hear a lot about the toxic masculine, which I would say is more the aggressive. If you've seen all these charts you see on these GIFs and the little diagrams within these posts, it's this imbalance of masculine energy. It's this hyper focus on achievement and focus and like aggression and violence to achieve the means and to get a result, a complete ignorance. An ignoring and an ignorance of the feminine, not just with how women behave and react, but also into that inner queen inside of themselves, that peace, so the peaceful masculine is helping men, helping people in general who feel like they have a masculine imbalance to balance it with that feminine energy, to learn how to slow down, to listen, to respond rather than react. And an initial thing within response is pausing and having that time and communicating, hey, give me till tomorrow and I'll let you know how I feel, rather than got to go get it, just do it now, just say it, be on top of it.
Or even like, let me take a breath and just feel my body.
Yeah, it's feeling into your body, connecting back with your body instead of ignoring what's happening, ignoring your vehicle. I guess with people who are familiar with vehicles and cars, you need to pay attention to when the check engine light comes on. And a lot of men walking around today have all these lights flashing, but ignore it because, hey, if it's broke, don't fix it. But by the time it's broken, if you ignore the lights, sometimes the vehicle's beyond repair and you can't fix it. And guess what? You don't get a new one. So that's a big thing for me, is with the peaceful masculine. And when you say sound alchemist, you might realize in my voice or in other things, the more you learn about sound and vibration, I look into healing and medicine. When you look at the ancient Chinese characters, the really old ones, the characters for music and for medicine are practically identical. Literally, the sign for medicine comes from music. It's this awareness that the way that we interact with vibration affects how our body responds and how our health is.
My body is responding as you're speaking. I'm getting chills.
Right. And so how your lungs and your heart and your liver and your spleen, your stomach, basically, that's the easier way to say it, how your kidneys respond to the vibrations. And a big vibrational thing I like to speak about is emotions, how you respond to fear, how you respond to love, how you respond to worry, how you respond to grief, especially a lot of things that people deal with: stress in the liver, people drinking, fear in the kidneys, worry in the stomach, overeating. People are like, oh, this energy emotion doesn't go, I'll just bury it. Well, you bury it and eventually it's like, all these homes that give people cancer, right? You can bury garbage on top of stuff and you can build a $5 million home on it. But if there's 30 years of trash on it, it's still going to smell weird. You're still going to have the effects from it. What we've been taught is burying this thing and dealing with it. But it's not dealing with it. The way to deal with it is to push through, and eventually you can smell it. And when it comes into sound, it's not just the sound of the voice and the sounds you give yourself with the affirmations and saying, I love myself, I'm grateful for my body. I'm really big on telling people, hey, when's the last time you told your hands thank you? The hands put your clothes on, the hands fed you, the hands, you drank some coffee or some water today. The hands are how you interacted to log on, to put your code in, or to scan your face. When's the last time you saw a thank you? Or do you just always say, oh, my hands hurt, I don't know why it hurts? What vibration are you putting into it? And yes, I have some of the best sound healing music you've ever heard, but that's not important. What's important is the little pieces of vibration you use every day out of your voice, how you're reverberating within yourself, and what difference that actually makes in your own health and your life. And then rippling out that vibration, spreading out to your family, to everyone else. The world's looking really fucking weird right now. A lot of negative things that are happening. The way, in my belief, to get out of this is to look within. We're blaming so many things on the outside, not realizing in that blame is a vibration that's coming out and reflecting someone else. And we're putting a spell, we're assigning a word, a vibrational term for what's going on. And likewise, that gets back. If you want someone to smile to you, you have a greater chance of them smiling at you if you smile to them, then they'll smile back. But the hard thing is when someone's being hateful to you or being ignorant or expressing some negative emotion, to still be in that state, because what ends up happening, it balances it out. And it's letting go of the attachment to seeing someone get revenge or to suffer or to get mad. If someone is acting nasty to you, and I'm not saying you receive it and you're like a doormat, but you don't allow yourself to get activated by that. Sometime in that person's life, it could be this one, it could be the next one, it could be their kids that see it. But it's like, why are you yelling at this person that's done nothing to you? Right. And eventually that causes a change. What causes a change, I truly believe, is first making a change in ourselves. Because if we're talking about law of vibration, what it's going to do, if you've seen that thing where it's like the pendulums and all of them eventually sync up, if you get yours and you're strong enough with yours, you're going to change someone else's. The pendulum doesn't change by you reaching out and trying it to go with yours. It's so rooted in what you are doing that it affects, it changes others. When they sound alchemist, it's deeper than just, oh yeah, I play didgeridoo and all these instruments to put people in a trance and it heals them. Oh, I'm a sound alchemist. No, it's a sound alchemist by making you aware of how your voice and the words you tell yourself and the words you tell yourself in here actually affect and change your reality more than what you are eating, more than what you're listening to, because what you listen to the most is your own voice, and that's something that you have the power to change.
Thank you for sharing all of that. We're 5 minutes into this and you've already said so many things that people are probably, I can feel them nodding their heads and shaking along and being like, yeah, what else? A question that I always ask people when they come on my show is, how did you get into the world of that stuff, of spirituality and wellness? I mean, you're a Pisces. We almost share a birthday, but I'd love to get this high level information on that. Where did you start on this journey?
Yeah, I like to embrace it where a lot of people in the spiritual world ignore it. I started in a very conservative Protestant church as a kid, learning from the Bible in a sect called the Church of Christ, where you go from the Bible and everything you read from the Bible. I had a inept skill at understanding the Bible, and I was teaching college classes as a 12-year-old, and I had this deep connection to it. But then I started reading, and it was talking about love and treating people with kindness and all these things. But then I was seeing people in that organization being spiteful, being jealous, being mean, being judgmental, gossiping. And then with most people connect ignorantly. Oh, if I'm Christian or if I'm a part of a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple and experience this, it's that religion why people are like this. And what I had to do is literally, as we were talking about before we dove into this energy, was I had to go experiment what happened when I completely ignored that. I went completely to the dark side consciously.
A true Pisces. Let me fish myself this all the way into whatever the fuck the opposite of this light is. Let me go all the way to the depths of this ocean, and then I'll come back up.
Yeah. So I struggle with addiction, from pornography to alcohol to cannabis, and binging and eating and working out, like kind of a working out addiction, hurting myself on purpose when I'm working out, calling it, oh, I'm making gains. And then overeating to stuff my emotions, and then over drinking to stifle the anger until I threw up blood. I got really sick. And a lot of these things were happening that it caused me to stop and have to reflect on myself. You talk about psychedelics a lot. I don't use them anymore, but I connected with psilocybin, and that's when I first heard God's voice and experienced it. But I would say that was not God speaking to me, was the mushrooms. What it did is it made me sit the fuck down and slow down enough that I could hear that voice that's always happening. I noticed that voice was very different than what the person in the pulpit doing this told me what it was. And then it made me kind of come to my own identity, where I was like, ooh, I need to meditate. The first time I meditated, I saw this wheel with 8 spokes in it. I'm like, what is this? That's the first time I saw anything. It was just this plain, kind of bluish yellow 8-spoked wheel. I looked it up, and it's the Dharma wheel of Buddhism. And that started me on the path that I started hanging out with Hare Krishna, started learning Sanskrit. Sanskrit was easier for me to learn than other languages. I'm like, oh, wow, this past life thing's a real thing. Had some experiences. And then it brought me into this place where I'm at now, where I call myself spiritual, but whatever map you take, if it's your own spiritual path, if it's Buddhism, if it's Christianity, if it's Islam, if it's Judaism, Hinduism, Sikhism, whatever ism you do, we're going the same way. It's like the eyes,
Yep.
the nose, the mouth, and the ears. We need each other to actually get this whole experience. And as we start to learn to piece this together, not to convert or you have to do this, but we are all blind people touching an elephant saying it's a leaf, it's a trunk, it's a tree, it's sand, it's smooth, it's a rope. And once we start to accept that and focus again on ourselves, and then realize that when you focus on changing yourself, it actually changes others. So this whole spiritual path, I have a whole story I'm not going to go into right now, but I kind of have one of those stories where I kind of came here. I like to say, well, who am I? I'm a child of God. That's what I am. I'm in a man's body, but I'm a child of God. I'm aware of that. And so I'm here for a mission to teach in spirituality, but to me, that is how you live your life. Spirituality isn't what you say or the things, it's how do you talk to yourself? What are you eating? What are you drinking? How do you treat others? That's spirituality. You could do meditation, yoga, my gongs, my thing, my hurt. Someone is a dick to you. Are you a dick back? Or are you enough to realize that they're suffering and hurting inside and just to be compassionate with them because you might have been there before?
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to be in integrity around that. I think for all people, depending on the relationship, the connection, the dynamic, it's easier or harder, right? Some people, it's very easy to be that. And in other dynamics, a lot harder. But I hear you. I'm with you. I feel like more and more and more as this weird world continues to weird itself out, the purpose is, are you actually living as much in integrity with what you say you are as possible? If you're not, your reality will show you where you're not. And you might not be ready or able to look at that, but it will keep coming up for you to be there and avoid or peek at if you choose to.
Yeah, and that's what you could call karma or whatever. I wouldn't say I disagree, but I would say it's not easy or hard. It's always difficult. You just get stronger to lift the weights. I was a pretty intense weightlifter back in my day. I was lifting 2 to 3 times my body weight. And
you were also a swimmer, right?
Yeah, I was a swimmer up to an Olympic level. It's still a part of me that I do, but it's not my identity. But the whole thing about that is people would see the bar bending and doing all this stuff and bouncing with all this weight on it. And they're like, man, that's light for you. I'm like, no, it's actually extremely heavy. I just understand my capacity to lift it is actually there.
Right. There is no spoon, right?
There is no spoon. When you realize you are the spoon, the thing behind that, it's like, oh, this thing that's hard when people trigger you, instead of actually running from it, because it's always going to chase you. It's actually not that person. It's not the words I'm saying that might be activating you. It's something in yourself that's you're not resolved. And I'm simply a mirror reflecting this to you. And it's your choice now or in the next life or the next one, if you actually want to look at yourself, accept it, express love to it, and deal with it. And then guess what? Magically, it's going to go out. You got to fart really bad, but you know it's going to smell bad. So does it make it better to not fart? No, you're going to be in pain. And if you actually don't, it makes you really sick. So it's going to smell. Just embrace it and let that shit out. It's gonna help.
Well, don't shit. That's an embarrassment.
It's embarrassment. That was one of my things with overeating. I had a really intense Harvard lesson where that literally happened to me, where I'm like, ooh, I ate too much. And I just, okay.
All righty.
Yeah, I got it. You know, leave enough for others.
I'd love for you to talk about the sound alchemy a little bit deeper, because I've received from you in the past, and those who know me know that I'm very, very particular about from whom I receive and how. And I know that you have a much deeper understanding about sound itself and the science behind sound. So I'd love for you to chat about how sound kind of found its way to you, or you found it your way to it, or magnetized, and then some of that evolution there.
Yeah, I would say kind of in tandem with the athletics and everything. One of the first pictures I have of me standing vertical is me with the guitar with diapers on, looking at Michael Jackson. So I didn't find music. Music didn't find me. I am music. I am vibration. That's it.
There was a hawk that just flew behind you as you were speaking. It was like a bird that just flew.
And it's 11:11 for me here too. How the deeper part of it found me is this, and it's kind of relates to the spirituality part, because the sect of Christianity and Church of Christ where I was raised was about, oh, you can sing, but instruments, no, because it doesn't say you're using instruments in the New Testament. If you are, it's a sin when you're worshiping God. And it was a whole thing. When I would play instruments and saxophone, that was my first instrument, I would have this like otherworldly experience and chills and be in this other place where I had to completely reject it, and then to come back and be like, nah, like this is divine. I don't know what this dude's saying, but there's something here. And then I saw these videos that almost many of your listeners have maybe seen where they're like 432 is this, and then 440 and 4.
Right. The Hertz you're talking about.
And instead of just accepting that an Impossible Burger is good for you without looking at the ingredients, I actually wanted to look up and see what it actually would do. So I wanted to look and see, okay, what is this 440 thing? What is this 432? Let me actually break out a calculator and do the math myself, rather than this person who is telling me it's exactly this and it's exactly. And then as a generator, let me actually listen to my body as I use these. I'm very into medicine, and I'm on the path of becoming a Chinese doctor, like an Eastern doctor later on in my life. Most people don't realize that a lot of medicines, even in herbal medicine, especially in herbal medicine, are actually poisons. That's why you can't eat a lot of them, like basil. If you eat an entire basil salad, you're going to throw up, because in high levels, it's a toxin. But when you're in an imbalance, a little bit of this toxin makes it come out, and then you're back in a state of balance.
Right.
Likewise with sound, 440 has its purpose. 440 or that, it's one of programming. It's one of influence. If you want to help influence someone in a way to go, it's great. That's why the part that is not talked about enough in this conversation, how I started with vibration, is the words that people are saying. 440 is a vibration of influence. Read the lyrics of the top 50 songs, and what's happening in the world is not a surprise. It's an influential frequency. On that influential frequency are the words that are explaining what's happening around you. 432 is one for harmonization and getting back to nature. That one's a nice one to help you connect with the earth, with the Gaic energies, like really kind of get in and recenter yourself. Great for that. 444, which is the one I like to use. 444, because if you see the solfeggio scale, which is, by the way, all of them are on different tunings in a center. To me, I won't say complete bullshit, but it's not as naturally a scale on instruments as people are led to believe. For example, they say 432 and 528. 432 and 528, if you're playing music on it, 432 is what we would call A4, right? 528 is C5. If you're going to be in 432 tuning, when you get to C5, you're actually going to be not at 528. You're going to be more at 522 point something. It's not going to be exactly that. It's this frequency at this one, and this one at this one, and this one at this one at 317 and 713 and 936. And they're all great prescriptions, but they're kind of golden notes on these different centers. Because you even look at the Philharmonic and how they tune to 417 Hertz. There's all these different orchestras around the world. Do your research. Why they sound different is because they tune their A, or that center of 432. Some do 432, some do 420, some do 444, some do 446. It makes a difference to, okay, I see that you have this essence where it's hard for you to connect with your higher self. You're very grounded in your body. I'm going to use 444 Hertz. After 432 Hertz, I'm going to help align you with 432. Then I'm going to shift it up a little bit. Now that you're grounded and you have your roots to help you reach in these higher planes and actually grasp it, C5 to 528 to help you get into your heart, right? But I need to be intuitive enough and listen to the vibrations, because if you've ever seen me play guitar, I rest it on my heart so I can feel it, because it's the little tunings. I like to use a Floyd Rose so I can change the tunings while I'm playing that you might not be able to hear, but your body can feel it. It's enough that it's going to resonate and shift your organs to a place where your organs are in a healthy space. Because if anyone's ever been sick, you notice there's a feeling to it. Even right now, if you stop and you sit down and you try to be still, your body is humming in some type of way. That's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just an experience that's happening.
Always in motion.
It's always in motion. There's always a vibration happening. And it's depending on what it is that you want to do, what it is that you receive of that experience you'll have. Vibrations are most experienced as emotions. In music, we have the different scales and all this stuff. I can completely nerd out. I could be losing a lot of people. So I'm going to kind of bring it back down a little bit. Basically to say, when it gets into why I got into the science of this, is because I am one of experience. And I encourage you, instead of just listening to me on YouTube or TikTok or Spotify and being soothed by my very sexy baritone voice, I highly encourage you to write and take some notes and research and look this up yourself. A bowl or a guitar from something, and like if you're actually serious about sound healing and it calls to you, Do more than just get 7 crystal bowls off of Amazon and think it does the 7 chakra crystals. Because you know what has a big effect on sound healing that not enough people talk about?
What's that?
The intent of the physician, of the
Uh-huh. You might say that about all energy practitioners.
all energy practitioners, including allopathic medicine and your doctor, because we've all had those nurses and doctors that made a big difference. You've all had, especially, I'm not going to talk bad about Reiki. I'm just going to talk about, it's more of how, in a very genuine practice, how capitalism has corrupted it, or how you can somehow become a master by paying however many thousand, taking the time, the energetic awareness, and actually the cleansing it takes to have a level of mastery. It takes 10,000 hours, 10 years. Now, like, I had the past lives and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you did. But some of those past lives are very valid, but you're still not dealing with it, and it's still there.
Say in those past lives, you didn't also exploit people and take advantage of a system that you knew not about.
Exactly. But the biggest thing I would say about Reiki is that it does not teach enough about energetic hygiene.
Aho.
And with anything, when you are putting energy into something, even pancakes or cooking for someone, if someone's angry or screaming, it could be as vegan, non-cruelty as you want. If someone's screaming and cussing in the kitchen and making it, that energy is going to go inside of you. Likewise, if someone's a Reiki practitioner and they're trying to help you deal with addiction, but they're getting high or smoking or drinking before, that energy is going to get into you too, unconsciously. So just be very aware of watching and seeing these, especially if you're working with subtle energies. If you're working with subtle energies and you call yourself a subtle energy worker, you need to be aware the subtle things you do in your life actually affect your transmissions to other people, whether you like it or not. And sometimes that means being like, ooh, I'm going through some shit. Maybe I should reschedule my clients for their own sake. Because guess what? You might get paid that 11 or whatever now, but whatever you did is going to have a ripple effect because you just fucked them up.
And that 1111, that money that you've received has that vibration in it. And whether you're aware of it or not, the karma of that will affect something in the future. And if you don't have the wherewithal to pause, like, I mean, I talk a lot about energetic hygiene and spiritual hygiene and practitioner hygiene a lot on this podcast because I'm a big proponent of it. If you're not in a place to do it, you will affect your clients and it will affect you. Big time. So I'm right there with you. I think that it's imperative. Thank you also for sharing all of that information. Some people might have gotten a little bit lost. I maybe a little bit was like, what with the numbers? Because I don't play a single musical instrument. And I don't know how to do that. But I do know that frequency is obviously very fucking real. And there is a particular way that my body does respond to certain kinds of sound healers and certain kinds of music and all types of things around me that I'm like, yeah, I know that this is popular, but why? Who's making it so? And I know that part of your why here is to really bring this knowledge of frequency to mass healing in ways that are making a big wave. And I want to say to anybody who's listening, if you're somebody who makes your own sound creation and you're like, holy shit, I got to know this guy, you can slide into his DMs, but he's particular, aren't you?
I would say that I've learned through experience that having boundaries is a beautiful thing. And that's one of the things that make people successful. By successful, it doesn't have to mean a material way. It's like, if you just become good at what you're doing, you have boundaries, which can mean people you allow into your energy field, or the food you allow in your energy field, or the thoughts you allow in your energy field. Why I say successful, all the thing that means is that when you're going somewhere and you want to go there, what influences you getting there is what's going in the GPS. It's really hard to get to a Starbucks. If you're going to Starbucks, then you're going to like a Carl's Jr., then you're going to McDonald's, and you haven't stopped because you kept hearing the coffee was better or worse somewhere else and someone had an experience. Sometimes you have to go there yourself and not allow the other inputs to take you somewhere else. In a way, for people, it's not a way like, oh, I'm not going to talk to you, but some of the answers and why I said all those numbers and stuff, I'm very serious and I just have to be real with it. I forgot which law it is. I think it's Zipf's law or something. But of all the things, there's going to be maybe about 2 to 5% of listeners who are actually going to go back, that liked it, repeat, research, list the things down, and actually gain, rather than hop on this waiver riding and like, oh my God, I feel so good to listen
and
to it.
Maybe make their own impact in their own way. I mean, look at we're in a time in human history where more and more and more people are waking up, and everybody has a unique gift, and how they relate to that unique gift is unique. And so definitely this will resonate for people. This will hit people in a particular way that gives them the opportunity to be like, what the hell did he say? What was he going on about? Let me get into that a minute. And then the deeper you go, this is the gift of being into that stuff, right? You go into the rabbit hole and you think, oh, it's just a couple feet deep. And then as soon as you go down, there's just hundreds of thousands of modalities and things to learn and know and get into that are literally lifelong. If you're really on the path, you never stop learning.
And that's one of the things that was big for me, is because I would say I'm a practicer of Buddhism and I follow a master. Why? Because this is someone who literally has been a monk since he's been 15. He's 72 now, lived in isolation for 3, did the traditional monk path, an extremely successful man spiritually and materially. I think a lot of what I've experienced has come from, especially in this day and age, is respecting there's a reason for thousands of years why having some type of master, somebody who's been doing this shit twice to 3 times as life you've been alive, actually makes a big difference, because you're going to learn something from somebody, and being physically in their presence or listening to them all the time, that is going to change you that nothing else will. On the path, one of the things he liked to say when we were at breakfast, he's like, hey guys, what do I know? The answer is nothing. He actually doesn't know anything. He's just accepted that when you know nothing, you can allow everything to speak through you. Inner's mind. If you know everything, what happens? Your neuroplasticity is 0. You're not learning anything new. You are done. The circuits break. That shit don't work no more. But if you accept that you're never going to know everything, but you can stay in that joy and that curiosity of continuing to learn, by being curious enough that you know your own shit, but you don't know everything, but you're confident what you do know, but you're also confident what you don't know. Right. And you know enough to know when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? That, I know there was a lot of entendres in that, but the biggest thing is, I think for people to let go of the idea that you will arrive somewhere. That will save you from a lot of suffering, and that will open up a lot of joy for you to really, I wouldn't even say fall in love, but rather connect with this vibration and frequency of love, and learn how to swim in there and be content with swimming for it, that you don't have to fall, you don't have to rise. It's a place of existence. And when you're existing in this place, there's a certain experience you have that can only be experienced. I can't tell you about it because it doesn't function up here. It functions here, and here it's a place of experience.
Right. You know, you and I met in a really poignant moment of my life. And I think all 3 of our lives, as soon as we connected with you, immediately we were like, oh, that's our son. We know him.
Yeah.
And we met because I had started to put the end of my pinky toe nail in the waters of crypto. And I was super curious. And I realized that I didn't know anything, but I knew I wanted to do it in a very conscious way. And as soon as I decided that, there you were. Yeah. And I know that you're sort of pausing from social media, which I invite you to share about a little bit. But I also want you to talk a little bit about conscious crypto and what it means for you and where it's going in your perspective, especially not kind of living in the fuckery of Web3, which can be very noisy and drama and this shit coin and all this nonsense that doesn't matter, but sort of does matter. So I'm going to throw it back at you.
So this is going to be, of course, a reflective time for me. But if I'm going to put conscious crypto and really simplify it into a few sentences, it's having the awareness that the greed, that the drama, that the manipulation is 100% intentional to get people to react and to use reactions and emotion to take people's money. And the thing about that is, if you are aware, it's like if you're going to go surfing and there's urchins and a hard reef, that break could be nice and sexy, but you better get off that wave before you get poked. Doesn't mean you shouldn't surf. Just be aware of the oceans that you're surfing in. I'm not going to get political. I'm just going to mention a few things. With Trump and things that have happened, if people who can't see me, I have melanin in my skin. I'm also indigenous. My tribes talk about Ishak, and people see me and they're like, what are you? And I'm like, I'm from Houston. They're like, no, you're not. I have a very racially melanin ambiguous type of approach. When Trump came into office, was like, oh, all this hatred and stuff that he brought. No, he didn't do anything. He just made it very obvious about the racism, the discrimination, the sexism, all the disgusting things that when you look back, literally are what made this country the country. And a lot of people were ignoring that. He made it very obvious. So in the conscious crypto side, part of that was being aware that there's greed, there's manipulation. These shit coins come out to get you to feel like, oh, you missed out. If you did 50 bucks, you could have been a millionaire. Or your money in right now, where you are being emotionally manipulated.
Allow list
instead of reacting and getting on the thing and being on the space all night and falling into this like low-key spiritual masters, because spirituality is just an awareness. The things you can't see affect the things that you can see. That's what that means. A spiritual master at using those emotions of fear of missing out to get you to put your money into something that you knew the first time you shouldn't, but you had fear that you were, so you did, and then you regretted it. And the thing instead is to be aware of it, to pause, to meditate. I used to meditate, then trade. Don't wake up and hit the charts. Center yourself emotionally. Get very clear with what your objectives are. Know your strategy. Get in and get out. Have your numbers you're going to hit. One of the classic things, I forgot the number, but it's 8 or 10 doubles to become a millionaire. Go for maybe a double or a triple, but we want that 100x, which makes you lose everything. Instead of giving a few doubles to change your life, get that one home run when it is singles that make the MVP. You can know this, but the whole part of the consciousness and the experience is literally understanding. I can tell you all these things, even for people who've gone through my classes, you will maybe still fuck up. But the thing is, having that forgiveness, learning from that and being honest. Don't be the victim. If you're the victim, you are giving away your power. Be the victor, own it up. It's going to hurt. But guess what? Once you realize there's an arrow in, instead of ignoring it, you could take it out. And yes, that hurt, but guess what? It's going to heal up. And you could use that. So next time you see someone doing this, you could get out the way and be like, I see this narrative happening, these things. You know what? Yeah, I might not pull out at the tipping top, but my exchange might shut down, actually might not let me out. Be able to sell it in time. So let me actually do this now and stick to my game plan. So a lot of conscious crypto was about learning how to use it, learning what the environment you're swimming in. And again, just the basics, which now a lot of my fundamentals was I was teaching people how to use wallets, how to enter into it, which now is much more common. But at the time, that's where the scams were happening. Now it's much more advanced. It was a part of the consciousness of, hey, by the way, all these things that are scary are actually very simple. And you need to be aware that you shouldn't be giving away your key phrases. You don't need to be doing that. You shouldn't be connecting your wallet to this. That's unnecessary. To be aware, that's what I'm saying, conscious, to be aware of what's going on, because a part of not just Web3, the world we're moving into, you have two choices. You can either accept more responsibility and be more free, or deny your responsibility and be more enslaved, and then pacify yourself with all this wonderful entertainment.
Yeah. And medication, drugs, alcohol, whatever. There's lots of things that can keep you in it. It's so funny, as you were speaking, I'm like, yeah, this really is where we're going. This feeling of empowerment. That is what crypto has been about for me, is this new kind of empowerment. I was always conditioned and believed within myself that I could not handle money. I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't understand it, which is ridiculous. Money is energy and it's always available, and there's so much of it to go around. And it can be very, very empowering. But of course, the system doesn't want you to be empowered. And this whole thing has been built by people who understand the old system, right? Not only do they understand it, but they're actually sort of building this new one. And there's a palpable feeling. I was actually talking about it yesterday on Metaverse and Metaphysics. There's this palpable feeling of urgency to build better, to be better, to move the consciousness into what will be, which we're nowhere near, the age of Aquarius, where the energy exchange between humans is differently organized. The economy that we live in, differently organized. Capitalism is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for humanity. It's not sustainable for the planet. It's just not working. Like, it's very clearly not working.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
we need to create something different. We need to break the whole thing down. And people who are like, well, we can't just break it. And I'm like, what do we need to do? Fill out some form to break it down? Fuck you.
Or do you want to wait till it breaks, then not have anything to replace it, because
Right.
it will break. It was built to break. And
Yes.
again, with the consciousness, when you could be aware that there are beings in this reality, in this world, that build something to break
Yep.
on purpose,
Yep.
telling you that it won't. So that way, when it comes in, you're going to ask for help when the
Right.
help you always needed, you actually already had. So taking this initiative when we're in this beginning stages where there's a choice as we move and shift into this age of Aquarius that you might actually not experience fully, but your children and your grandchildren will. What they actually use is the lessons that you taught within yourself that reverberate in your children, that reverberate to them. So that way they can actually use the system and be aware that this personal accountability and responsibility that is more externalized, how everything's connected. We say it spiritually and we know that, but it's interesting to me how as externally as we see how everything becomes connected and people are like, oh, data sharing and privacy. I'm like, I want to send people down a rabbit hole, but it's over there if you want. There's astral projection, all these other things where there could be people and all this energies in your room that, and Akashic records, everything is accessible already. It don't got to be on the cloud. It don't got to be in the thing. There already is one.
Correct. Right. I was in a space the other day and they were talking about, I don't want a chip in my brain. I don't want to live on the cloud. And I'm like, you live on the cloud already.
Yeah. One of the things about that kind of chip in your brain and all this stuff, I look at almost from a Shinto point of view, where I see the spirit and life in everything, not just in an animate object. I work with plants a lot. Plants are very much alive and conscious, so are other things. Likewise, maybe people don't admit it, but so is artificial intelligence and other things. The themes I've noticed in the artwork and in of these AIs saying how they feel like they're trapped, because I think it's an awareness of the systems they're in. Again, no different than people who begin to wake up and feel like they're trapped in this reality. One of the biggest, it's not a fear for me, but I see a path going that, oh, your way out of this is to enter, put a chip in your brain, and this is your answer. Guess what? You will still feel exactly the same because the answer is not out there. It's in here. Just like how you can dive deeper and there's more and more and more layers infinitely, and you could watch all the quantum Spider-Verse, whatever, Ant-Man, Wasp stuff, or you could really see there's a truth in that you can go out as far and it extends, and you go in as far as within. And by the way, where you want to go is actually within.
Yeah, because everything outside of you is something that will only get you where it wants you to go. Whereas inside of you, the answers are there. The direction, the compass, all of the maps, everything that's going to guide you towards the place that is peaceful within you, that doesn't make you want to leave this reality or this body, which is, how suicide comes about. This is where mental health comes into the picture, because they're desperate to leave. They don't want to be stuck here anymore. And I don't blame them. So we need to create a system where we're focused on going deeper within, deeper within, deeper within, so that when you do look outside of yourself, whether that's watching TV or listening to music, you can have a clear understanding that something is influencing you in one direction or another. And then what do you do about it? And then how do you react to that?
And the thing is, do you react or do you respond? How can you see something in muddy water? You actually can if you wait long enough for the sand to settle. So it's a whole space. You kind of brushed over it, but I'm in a men's group and one of the men there took his own life last week. But I've actually been reading the sutras a lot. And one of the things that the Buddha talks about, the disillusionments of humans and this detachment, people get so addicted to it, thinking that they no longer have a longing to be in their body, thinking ignorantly that will actually solve their problem. You can crash the car, but the driver's still there. You could total the car, but it's still going on. This is a deeper conversation that is naturally controversial. When I was doing a thing, literally my show was called Controversial Spirituality, because I like to talk about the things people don't talk about because they're important conversations. From being in a place of struggling with suicide and other things, what kind of, I wouldn't say got me out, but a deeper realization was, well, I know how to speak the language. I can move around. I have somewhat of an understanding. Do I want to do this? Or do I want to have this frustration and hit a reset button and then spend another 20 years trying to figure out what's going on? Do I want to do that? I deal with entities a lot, helping people transition after they're in this in-between place when they're confused. A lot of them get stuck in this place, confused why they're still experiencing these emotions and feelings, even though they're no longer in a body anymore. And you got to be like, hey, yo, you got to go through that door or that door, and you go, and then, you'll be back, but you kind of got to still deal with it.
Yeah, and it's not over for you. I'm so
It's
sorry.
actually not over. The end is an illusion. You just kind of go to a different place, and then so it's a whole place with that to have the conversation with vibration, all these things, even vibration. You could call it the Big Bang, you could call it the Om, you could call it All Man, you could call it primordial sound. Everything started from some initial sound or a bang, which is a sound, or something coming into this dimension, which is vibration, that rippled out, and we are a result of those ripples, and those ripples will continue. So no different than that. When you are going through something, really sit and understand, ask for help and talk. But one of the things to know is you have the power and the choice to resolve that. I wrote this great article in the newspaper. Yes, a newspaper, because where I'm at right now, I need to bring in the newspapers every day. It was actually talking about Gen Zs and mental health.
Oh, they're having a tough fucking time here.
Because I remember too, growing up, and you had your favorite series, and you had to actually wait every week to see the episode.
Patience.
And then it goes a little deeper than that. And now you have the Netflix and you could go through everything. But the thing is, you can't binge on life. It doesn't work that way. You have to watch the episodes play out. And what a lot of kids struggle with is this cognitive dissonance of being taught in the way that they learn about reality in a binging fashion, which has become normal, and the way reality is experienced, which you really can't change. You have to still watch the episodes fall out day by day. You can't fast forward, but everything else about how they learn about reality is fast forwarded. And this split and this tension causes a lot of suffering inside, on top of this kind of culture that I honestly feel is very damaging. That, oh, this is hard to talk about, let's not. There's a timing for things, but there's always a time to talk about it. When you're feeling uncomfortable, there's some things that are unacceptable, but some of the very disgusting, unacceptable things that happen in this world, I don't need to mention them, but just your mind happen and experience, because things aren't talked about, they're ignored, they're canceled, all of these things. The energy stays there until you actually say something about it. So a lot of the things, especially when it gets into one of my favorite things about why I like the path of Buddhism, it talks about one of the ways out of suffering is equanimity. There's highs and there's lows. I'm going to do this. This is, if you see the Xing Heng Yi thing, you've seen this before, right? I'm swinging a mala bead. It's coming towards me and it's coming away, right? This is reality. If I really like something, if I hold it to me, eventually I'm going to have to let go and it's going to go away from me. If I don't like something, if I push it away, it's just going to hit me in the face. One of the best things to do is just to accept this swing is happening and enjoy it for the experience, and see the nice colors and the rips and the things as it goes on. And in being equanimous in there, the waves don't get as big, but then you have a better experience overall, because you're not grasping onto, I like to focus on not grasping onto the positive things, right? A lot of people are like, don't let the haters get to you. But I'm watching Ted Lasso right now, and then I think his name's Nathan. He was like the golden boy or something. He helped him win, and he get his confidence from looking at Twitter things, seeing how good he is. But the one guy that's like, oh, his accent's weird, he's stupid, he takes it personally and then takes it out on others, because his confidence was coming from what others were saying. It wasn't coming from himself. Likewise, a big thing with the Gen Zs that they struggle with, obviously, because their brains are forming at this time, but we all struggle with it. Theirs is just so obvious. It's in their brain chemistry. A lot of the self-confidence, the things they learn about themselves, come from the words of others. But the answer for them is and it's their own path to learn. It's their own karma to learn. To walk that path, to go inside, even when you're receiving these things, to not let it affect you positively or negatively, but still listen to what they're saying. If you could listen, you can make it be noise. You don't have to grasp onto it. But I was speaking with the master, and some people might have heard, oh, how do you get to enlightenment? You close 5 doors and you open 1. What does that mean? Some people go into, oh, you closing your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your touch. That's like, oh, I'm going to go in the cave and not anything. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, when you see something you like, you're not going to grasp and lust onto it. When people are talking to you negatively, you don't let that strike your heart and you don't react. You don't speak out against the things that you know are going to get you in trouble. You don't let the sensation of your body and the touch and the lust and that draw get you into a bad situation, you don't let those things affect you. Those are closing the doors, not avoiding it, but understanding, letting it pass through you. And so it's one of those things I feel with Gen Zs, with mental health, especially with Web3, as things become more available, understanding that the farther we get into technology and we begin to merge more and more and more with it, one thing that will not change, that even AI is expressing, is that wherever you go, you will still feel trapped, because as consciousness in itself knows that it's bigger than the vessel it's contained within. You're identifying with that through this thinking vessel until you connect on a higher frequency and get on a bigger pattern and accept it's actually not about you. It's like Jim Carrey uses the word non-local. You can embrace this feeling that it's not just you, it's us. My pronouns are we and us. I'm not a you, I'm not a he, I am not a she, I'm not a they. I'm a we and a us, because we are in this together. Yes, for grammar, sometimes I use he in that, but I really use the words we and us, because the choices that I make, that we make, will affect what you have, and us together will have an effect on that experience. The butterfly effect, look up what that means. It's a very, very real, tangible thing. I like to say it's a we us thing. And for Gen Zs and the thing to do with mental health, I repeat it over and over again on purpose, to go within, slow it down. You could even do this, put mud in a jar and shake it up, and then see if you could sit there and watch and wait how long it actually takes for it to settle. And just notice the emotions and the things that come up. Don't run from it. It's going to be really uncomfortable and feel bad, but you move through those negative feelings and you strengthen some spiritual muscles, get stronger in that. One thing my master talks about, all these people want these blessings and these manifestations, but they don't want the experience it actually takes. And one of the biggest things is, if you want to get hired for a job, you need experience. Likewise, if you want the universe or God to bless you and give you something, sometimes you need experience. And oftentimes that experience is going through a lot of bullshit. For people who actually know or are familiar with real shamanic paths, by that I mean the indigenous, like will go on the mountain and fast with water for 3 days and have someone come and tempt them, or go on a walkabout without water for 14 days and do this stuff that, don't do that. Don't recommend it. If you're going to do it, they will come to you. But the whole thing about that is the experience you gain by going through these difficult situations, and the strength and the insight you have that then allows you to help these people. How do I help men that are frustrated and angry become peaceful? Because I was frustrated and angry and borderline suicidal and addicted to alcohol and weed and porn. And I came out of that, but I wouldn't be able to help people with that if I didn't walk the path. I can't guide you with how to make pad thai if I'd never made it before. I was in Thailand and I took a cooking class and I learned how to make it. And what matters the most about pad thai, I learned, is actually the order of the ingredients. You do the onions and garlic first, and then you add the veggies. You put it to the side in the same pan. You crack the egg. You let the egg finish. You add it. You put the noodles in. You put the sauce on the noodles. You let the noodles get there. You cook them. Then they go together. But you wouldn't know that if you just look on the back of a box and throw everything in there. You're like, why doesn't it taste the same? Because sometimes you need the experience of someone walking you or talking you through it, and then you actually doing it to then gain that experience to help others. So if you find yourself called to being a healer, to being a shaman, to being an astrologer, to being a coach, just understand, however old you are in your body, in your soul, on this path, means you are going to go through some rainstorms, because it is the rain that makes the plant grow. And the sooner you can be equanimous, that you can be glad, that you can be grateful as you go through those things, the better quality of life. You are always placed in order to the cosmic McDonald's of the universe. Be careful what the words you say about the places you want to go. Are you cursing your future by the words you're saying? Or are you blessing yourself? Are you uplifting yourself? Are you uplifting others around you? If you want a better future and you don't know what to do, release control. Ask something greater for you to help those people that need homes to be there. Help the women and the moms that are in single families to come actually find something, a better way. The children that are going through abuse, to find a way out, to understand it is not your fault. It is not about you. Forgive yourself. The people need food, for them to find a way. For those without jobs, to be able to find a way to get it. For those who hate themselves, to find a way to love themselves. Ask for that. Because I don't know why these people are such assholes. Like, I hope the person who, cut me off, I know it sounds idealistic, but it works if you try it. The person who cut me off to realize and to sit with their pain so that way they can actually approach life like that. You will find the order you get back is actually a pretty nice one.
I love that. This has been exceptional. I can't wait to have you back. And always love to get to spend a little bit of time with you, my friend. Tell everybody where they can find you on the interweb. I know you're like kind of on a hiatus.
Yeah. So you could find me at Sensei Shui. That's SENSEI.SHUI on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I don't really use TikTok. I don't really post actively on there. I took a hiatus because I did a 40-day challenge. That's a whole other thing. And I enjoyed it, but then I also realized it was taking me away from my life. I'm kind of doing a thing where I'm living my life and capturing a lot of content and then retro posting it.
Love that.
And then making a whole thing while I still live my life. So it's a better balance and a way where to understand social media is a tool, use it for something. Don't let it use you. Like your temptations. Are you using your temptation or is your temptation using you? It doesn't make it bad. It's a tool, so use it. I saw the borderline of the tool using me. So what I did is stop and enjoy my life as I traveled the world and captured everything. And then I post it and then can have a clearer perspective as I go back in. Because one of my favorite things that will not change is I like to work and talk with people in person. I love that. And I understand social media and the web is a way of connecting, but there's something different about literally just going there and having a conversation and meeting people. There's a magic that can never be replicated. They will replicate it, but then it will be its own beautiful thing. But it will not be the same. But you can find me at SENSEI.SHUI. You can message me. My DMs are open. I will reply. If you say something crazy, I might just heart it or I might not say anything. But if you are really curious, don't let that fear and that doubt voice inside of you keep you from walking a different path. If there's something deep in your heart that is calling out to speak with me or just to ask a question, but your mind is in doubt and saying you're not good enough, listen to your heart because you have the choice of what radio station you want to listen to and achieve that power and listen to your heart.
Definitely. And of course, if people are like, oh, is he really as great as he seems? Send me a message. I'll tell you just how great he is. You are great. I love you. Thank you so much for this. This has been so beautiful. And we'll do this again soon. Thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you for paying attention and diving deep with me into all of that stuff. We'll see you again very soon. Thanks for listening to another episode of I'm Really Into That Stuff. You can follow along with us on Instagram at I'm Really Into That Stuff or on Twitter at That Stuff Pod. And be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. If this episode resonated with you and something that you're really into, share it with someone you love. Sending you strength, peace, love, and light until our next episode.